Alright, today we're doing a quick tour of the adversary deck Scum and Villainy for this Star Wars role-playing game by Fantasy Flight Games. First of all, for Minion Groups, Pirate Crew, Street Tough, and Apprentice Bounty Hunter, the Street Tough are definitely more melee-focused, whereas the others are more range-focused, but you can definitely use that to your advantage to help scale the difficulty of your encounters. Like, the names are just suggestions. The pirates don't actually have to be pirates, Street Toughs, or Bounty Hunters don't have to be their respective names. Though it is a nice, easy way to turn off your brain and throw together encounters quickly with the cards, or you can reskin them to adjust the difficulty so that if you want a really easy fight, have the Street Tough do range with one of their range weapons, or have the Pirate Crew or Bounty Hunters go melee, or have one of their Minion Groups be armed with whatever their strength is. And so we have some nuance there in terms of how difficult the individual Minion Groups might be, and of course you can always mix and match. The Street Tough are, I guess, technically the most flexible in terms of equipment and group skills, but again, just make slight tweaks to best fit whatever you need to use them for. And we do have some better versions that will pair well with these if you want thematic encounters with multiple types of enemies. For example, the Bounty Hunter, Apprentice Bounty Hunter, can be paired alongside the Master and Journeyman Bounty Hunter. Stop falling, stop. Get up. These are both really powerful, can make for a decent adversary for your group to gang up on. I also really like the idea of using the card and picture as is. What does the person look like? Here it is. Just show them the card. It looks like one of these. These are the people that you see before you. And it could be a team of bounty hunters, a pairing, sort of like Forlom and the bug guy, the robot and bug. Could be a team of bounty hunters. Ooh, you could set a whole adventure around a team of bounty hunters with various strengths and weaknesses trying to attack the party. Although, to be fair, really the Journeyman is kind of a weaker version of Master. As with a lot of the Star Wars enemies, there's not a lot of really interesting equipment or extra talents thrown in that make them kind of stand out, give their own flavoring in terms of how they fight and whatnot. But if you do want that, multiple bounty hunters are coming at the players from all different directions because there's a price so big on their head. Another great candidate for one of those NPCs, we got Pirate Captain to go alongside your Pirate Crew. This is a big upper Nemesis level. No pirate rival officially, but this one is a really powerful fighter, especially in terms of melee. Also, because Pirate, they're really good at the whole crime thing, so you could do the whole pickpocket an important thing from the player's satchel or whatever, and then they realize it's gone and they sort of wave goodbye as all of their minions swarm the players, and then they make their escape, and the players shake their fists in anger and fight them in a later session. They also get a bit of help leading their pirate crews, which is nice. We got a pair of smugglers. That smuggler Baron, a really experienced and powerful smuggler, the smuggler equivalent of the last three we talked about. Really, from their stats, their strength more lies in the fact that they're a charming pilot. If we are building content around this deck with perhaps a team of bounty hunters that are coming at the players, they could be the really skilled pilot of their group ship, or just a pilot-focused bounty hunter. And I like the regular smuggler as sort of a lieutenant, sort of like a stormtrooper sergeant to, I guess, really any minion group. Maybe the pirate minion group, there's a smuggler character kind of leading them, sort of a first mate kind of a character. Speaking of that, we also have weaker versions of that, with also different skills and abilities. One way to fill that lieutenant kind of role, the stormtrooper sergeant, the hired thug, more of a melee explosive-focused character, and a swoop ganger, well, they're kind of like weaker versions of the smuggler, but also they get a swoop bike, which stats aren't here. I don't know what book they're in. Hopefully in all three of the core books, otherwise it's kind of lame. Swoop ganger sucks. But if there are weapons mounted on like this, I know there's a speeder bike in the Edge core book, so maybe they could be like sort of a mobile, strafing, jousting artillery kind of person with your encounter. A slaver also makes for a good sergeant, leading a minion group type of a character, but they're pretty balanced in their combat ability, and they are sort of on the upper end of that ability spectrum, kind of in line with the smuggler-ish, give or take. But if you want that sergeant kind of character, maybe they're named, maybe they're not, maybe they're agility, maybe they're melee, maybe they got a bit of both. Well, this one can fill that role. If you want a merchant shopkeep kind of character, we have two that would fit the bill. The arms dealer. Really, he's just more of a really clever talker kind of character. In most ways, he's not as good as the Black Marketeer, as far as shopping and whatnot. Not always, but most ways. But that's really all he has to offer. The Black Marketeer also has a bit of a knowledge focus. If you want a knowledge broker kind of character in your campaign, the NPCs talk with. Based off the equipment, they have some special equipment the Black Marketeer does, which you might imagine, as a Black Marketeer person, they have access to some cool gadgets and whatnot. And also with their special ability, they are not to be taken lightly. So if you want to set it up so the players are likely to double-cross the Black Marketeer, or the Black Marketeer is going to double-cross them, throw in some bodyguards, and then you get a nice little fun crime encounter. And the Marketeer, well, you know, he could be sort of an info guy. It kind of makes sense thematically. Really, there is an information broker character. The Infochant. Infochant, never heard that word pronounced in real life. They're just a big old knowledge guy. Just a big old brain. They're good with all the knowledges. What else we got? A pair of techie-ish characters. Okay, one's a real techie, the Slicer. They're really good at computer hacking. And, you know, they could be like an NPC that the players hire to do a job, to go with them on a job. We don't have anyone who can hack. Can we find an NPC to do it? There's one, especially if you got a couple like this, a couple Slicer-type characters from various decks. Put them together, have sort of a random thing. Oh, you're looking for a Slicer? Shuffle through the deck of 3 or 4 cards, and oh, you got this guy, and he really is a Grand, just like this person, and he looks like that, and he has these stats. If you had drawn differently, it would have been a different stat block for your Slicer, which might have made things go differently, I guess. I don't know. Or, you know, if, let's say there's an encounter where you have a bunch of pirates trying to steal the ship. They go back to the spaceport after a mission. They're about to leave, and oh, there's all these people trying to break into their ship. Obviously, he would be one of them. Just added some variety to the enemies. And speaking of ship stealing, we have another techie-ish character, the Shipjacker. Really, they rely on their equipment to deal with stealing ships, and their skills, their characteristics, abilities are more about getting to the ship, flying the ship away, that sort of thing. Again, just another type of stat block to sort of throw into your pirate crew or crime crew, gang, whatever, or an NPC to use that the players hired to help do their mission. Unfortunately, the issue with the Star Wars adversaries is that not a lot of them really stand out in any interesting way, especially unique abilities that make them feel different from each other. It's mostly just numbers and basic stats, and also some equipment, rarely which is ever interesting. I think the pirate leader person had some special leader stuff with their pirate minions that was the most interesting this deck really gets for the most part. Now we have the, here we go, look at that. An assassin droid, probably the biggest, baddest combat character here, maybe, give or take. The characteristics might not be quite as impressive, but they make up for it with the skills and the equipment. This is some good stuff here. Oh, and he also has some good talents as well. So yeah, if you want a really powerful adversary to throw up against your people, or again, another bounty hunter in this little story where we're crafting around this deck. There's a price on the head of the player so big that all the bounty hunters in the system are coming after them, coming out of the woodworks. Or maybe, better yet, maybe only a handful of really well-known bounty hunters in the system, and you know, the ones I mentioned, the melee, the 2 range bounty hunter people, an assassin droid, of course. But someone had to hire these people, right? Someone had to hire. We have 3 cards, which are all basically bosses, kind of the criminal underworld of various types. The more interesting one, probably the weaker, less powerful one, arguably, would be the Corrupt Bureaucrat. Hold on, my hut is singing. The Corrupt Bureaucrat, Black Sun, Vigo, and Hut Crime Lord. The Corrupt Bureaucrat is probably the more interesting one. They would use their money and power and to help do favors or pay off various criminals and use them as pawns to their advantage. And of course, you know, throw them away, throw them under the bus when need be. There's a lot of content that can come from that. Jaded criminals that want to help you out, or perhaps you could be the jaded criminals, or your players, rather. A lot of fun stuff you could do with that. Black Sun Vigo. I finally know what a Vigo is. A Prince of Vice, a really high-up person in the Black Sun crime syndicate, though not the most high-up person. There are people above them, so their crime style is a bit more conservative, reserved. They can't just do whatever they want, unlike, say, Huts, which, you know, can do whatever they want. Very tough, very clever, and the Huts have some really cool movement penalties that they have to deal with and stuff like that, which is kind of fun. They also have a really a special large bore hand blaster that only Hutts can have, which is kind of neat. I often see referenced in this game Hutt Bunta blasters and other stuff like that that's Hutt only, a giant handgun, kind of like what the Red Hulk had, I guess, maybe like a giant Hulk-sized handgun. I want to see that, an actual picture of a Hutt pulling out a giant hand cannon. That would be fun to see. Why haven't they made art like that yet? Anyway, I really like the idea, in keeping in line with our encounter or adventure we're building. Part of it, the players have to figure out who put the bounty on them. And they have these 3 leads, these 3 suspects. They have to find out who put the bounty on them, and they have to do it in a set amount of time before whoever did it put the bounty open to everyone. The bounty right now is just only open, only known to certain people, certain bounty hunters they've contracted specifically, so you have these kind of named bounty hunters that are chasing the players, and they have to find out who actually put the bounty out on them so that they can deal with that. Maybe there's a name clearing that has to happen, they're blamed for some catastrophic thing that happened, or maybe they actually did a catastrophic thing, but once they find out that that's the problem, well, they have to manufacture evidence and blame it on someone else or something. I don't know. Somehow they have to resolve the issue after they find out who wants them bountied. Why don't the players just leave the system? I don't know. Maybe they're enclosed by distance, blockades, nebulas. You're the GM. I can't do all the work for you. Jesus. Anyway, a decent little deck. Very thematic if you have a crime-heavy stint section of your campaign. But again, as I said, not a lot of these cards, the Star Wars cards, really have interesting abilities that make them stand out. Unless you get to like the more powerful higher up ones, and even then, they're just not that interesting or different from each other. But if you need a whole bunch of generic combat people, especially crime combat people, but just combat people in general, you want some more stat blocks, and they're gonna mostly be fighting, but there's also some techie type stuff and non-combat characters in there. In fact, I kind of see this as almost like an inverse of that Citizens of the Galaxy deck I've talked about before. That one was more utility and non-combat than combat. In fact, if you want a nice, flexible, balance setup, I would get this one and that one together. They cover a wide breadth of stuff for your Star Wars campaign. And that is it for today. See you next time.